Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocate. First reaction review of the season, and it's not really one we're going to be too happy about, is it, boys? We were talking backstage, very laboured, lots of negatives. Looks like a very disjointed team, and Ten Hag's got a lot on his hands, I think, for the next game, particularly against Spurs. Yes, they are without Harry Kane, but that's going to be a very tough game. Jamie, Stu, Nathan, thank you very much for joining me, boys. Get your comments in, get liking, get subscribing, and all that jazz. Jamie, first of all, how you doing? And give me your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It wasn't a classic performance, wasn't it, by any stretch of the imagination? It's an improvement on our first game last season at home. So you take these positives where you can. Again, I'm sure we'll dissect individual performances as we go through tonight, but we were saying obviously backstage that Wolves obviously parting ways with Lopetegui a few days ago has probably left Ten Hag with a bit of a headache, thinking, I'm not really sure how Gary O'Neill's going to set up this Wolves side. So probably, reference a bit of the Bournemouth work, looked at Lopetegui's Wolves, went with a setup and said, this is what we're going to have to go. I reckon we'll look at a completely different side when we play them at Molineux. We'll have learned a lot about them. But look, credit to them tonight. I think they were unfortunate not to come away with the 3 points. They created better chances than us. They were more positive than us, as is always the case. Whenever we seem to have these conversations about teams that none of us have, I don't think, have said that Wolves were going to be a dead easy game. We know that Wolves are a tricky game whenever we play them. But according to Sky Sports, according to the Premier League, gossip stuff like that, it was going to be a walkover for us tonight, and it's never the case. I think people were writing Wolves off.
That's what I said on Friday as well. Walkover.
Yeah,
how wrong I was.
Well, I think people are writing Wolves off. They've got some talented players in there, and again, I'm sure we'll pick them out as we go along. But Mateus Cunha was absolutely wicked. Pedro Neto was mint. Hwang Yi-chan, when he came on, was sick. Nelson Semedo, again, I've not seen him have a performance like that for ages, but he locked down that sort of right-hand side and gave us some trouble. So, look, we picked up the 3 points. There's a dodgy VAR claim in there that I think we're lucky to have come away unscathed from. And again, but the eyes will be on us again now, because even though we were on the wrong end of a lot of decisions over the last sort of 24 months, people will forget all about them and they'll just think, refs favouring United again. Here we go. But look, we've kicked the season off for 3 points. You can't ask for much better than that. And I think we'll kick on, and it's given Ten Hag a platform to improve on.
Yeah, we need to kick on, that's for absolutely sure. Gary Neville absolutely going into United on Sky Sports right now. Wolves were absolutely fantastic. Midfield was non-existent, it emptied. That has been a real worry for Ten Hag. He goes on to say Man United were outplayed and can feel fortunate that they came away with the 3 points. Lots of people in the comments. John, I love your positivity. Buddy, the secret to title success are the 1-0s you don't play well. Only messing, not a good performance. Got lucky, but 3 points is all that matters. Reese, obviously, with us as well. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Hammer 2. Loads of you in. Good to see you all. Get liking, get subscribing, get your comments in. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us how you feel. Tell us the improvements you want to see. And maybe we'll talk about a midfield 3. Obviously, as I said, Spurs next weekend going to be a much bigger test. You come up against Cities, Liverpool's, Chelsea's, you're going to get torn apart. Stu, as I said earlier, mate, great to have you with me, my man. I hope you're well. Loving the new jumper that you forgot about. Talk to me.
Yeah, look, I kind of echo pretty much everything Jamie said. I thought Wolves were tremendous value tonight. Really good side, really positive. And there was a few concerning factors of the whole game, really, and I'll go into little bits in a minute, but one of the most startling things was the players didn't actually read the room, and I talk about this a lot, don't I, about actually in-game reading, watch what's happening during the game and adapt to it. And there were times where Bruno, in particular, was very laboured on the ball, and he should have realised. He should have realised you're not going to get you. Today, Wolves didn't give us a microsecond on the football, let alone a second. And there was times where we were overturned and overrun purely based on that turnover and the transition that Wolves put upon us. And unfortunately, I did pick this up, and I did bring it up on Friday, if you remember. I said that this wasn't the game for Mount. It needed Eriksen's calmness. It needed his guile. And it also wasn't a game for Garnacho. It needed Sancho. And, I talked about a floating front three, how they could all intertwine with Sancho. Anthony, because he's never going to drop Anthony, let's be honest. And Rashford, they could intertwine beautifully, and they were giving Kilman a right headache, and Nori as well, headaches. This is what you've got to do to the opposition. You've got to give them the headaches. And Jamie was right. Actually, we got the headache because we were almost suffocated. It looked like we got a strain of COVID out there. We couldn't breathe because of the way that Wolves pressed us. Their pressing and the way they set up and their shape for 100 minutes, as it turned out, was phenomenal. And the interesting thing about that is the players they bought off and the players they bought on made no difference whatsoever to how they played. They kept going and going and going. There were some absolutely superb performances on the Wolves side and some bad performances on our side. So I think you've got to look at it. And the reason, by the way, I didn't get a chance to talk about it Friday, but the reason I suggested that it wasn't the right game for Mount is because Casemiro and Bruno don't know what to do with Mount. They haven't got a clue what to do with him. When you've got Eriksen sitting around Casemiro, Bruno knows where Eriksen is. Casemiro knows where he is. So if Casemiro does venture forward, then Eriksen's going to come in and he's going to cover. That didn't happen tonight with Mount because Mount is more of an attacking player. So if you look at Bruno and Mount in particular, they crossed over paths quite a lot tonight. They ran into each other's space quite a lot tonight. So look, I know I'm dribbling and drabbling and all that, but it's something that, you know, what Gary Neville was talking about, Ben Pearce was talking about in a group chat that we're all in. He was talking about something very, very similar, and he's right. Yeah, there are fans that will say, "Look, you know, it's our first game," but you only get one first game, and that sets you up for the league. And we've got over the line, but we've got to get it better. So for me, it's okay, but wow, you know, we're going to. Sorry, Julio, but we are going to have problems as Jamie.
He'll give you that tender later, Julio.
Cheers, Julio. No, as Jamie pointed out, we're going to have massive issues with Tottenham, because if you saw any of Tottenham's game, they were superb. I know they drew 2 apiece, but they were excellent. So anyway, yeah, sorry, Nath. I'll let you have your say, pal.
Yeah, there's not many things you could probably say now, Nathan. Loads you in the chat.
Sorry, mate.
Really appreciate that. Obviously, get like and get subscribing. We'd love to hear your thoughts too. So please get involved. Nathan, last but not least at all, how you feeling after that? Any more to add?
It was a difficult watch. A lot of the game, it really was. It was you could definitely tell that Wolves in the first half, especially the first half an hour, their tactic was just to sit back, soak the pressure, and then immediately when they gained possession, they were on it. And there was a few times, like we were saying backstage, they could have been 4 or 5-0 up really easily in that game. But yeah, like Jamie and Stu said, we looked really disjointed and really suffocated in that midfield area. And agreeing with Stu what he was talking about, it wasn't the game for Mount, I don't think. Like he says, the comfortability of Eriksen in that midfield was really clear for those first 60 minutes, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's a worry for me, actually. I think, you know, when we've spoken about that midfield three and the type of high press, you know, a lot of energy in that midfield, this is really for these types of games. This is no discredit to Wolves, but, you know, when we come up against the likes of City, Liverpool and whoever else, you know, you need to have someone in there like Amrabat, you know, we've been linked to them, someone like that that's able to sort of break the play up a little bit more and give it a little bit more stability. So if it's not working now, that could be a little bit of a worry for us. So let's talk about that midfield three then, Jamie. Obviously, we spoke about that a little bit more backstage. What do you think in particular was bad about it? In my opinion, I think that sort of Mount was hovering a little bit too far forward. Bruno was trying to kind of drop back a little bit more, and it was almost like 2 roaming 10s, which just didn't work. We needed to flood that midfield, I think. We wouldn't have known that before the game. We did talk about this on Friday, didn't we, Stu? And yeah. But yeah, Jamie, what do you think really went wrong for us in the midfield, and what do you expect to sort of improve on going forward?
So I think the biggest problem we had was the setup itself. Obviously, it was looked like a 4-3-3 that we were playing, but in actuality, when we were in possession, it was more of sort of like a 3-4-3 or even a 2-5-3. When you look at like the way that the box was set up, Casa sometimes was floating as the lone defensive midfielder, and whichever fullback had decided to invert. Inverted fullbacks are all the rage at the minute, and Shaw did it a lot in the first half. Wan-Bissaka stepped into midfield as well, really well. But then the problem is that, like Stu mentioned, is that Bruno has his role that he's very comfortable doing, and Casemiro is very good at knowing what Bruno's going to do, and they're good at covering. When you then throw Mount into that, the box becomes disjointed, and that's before you even then start talking about the fact that Wolves were really good in transition. So the way they set up with, again, it looked almost like a typical Wolves shape that we used to see under Nuno Espirito Santo. They had the quick, strong fullbacks, with the wing backs. Sorry, they had 3 central defenders. The defensive midfielders again rejoin the defense. So as soon as we're in attacking transition, they immediately step into us, and we're outnumbered because the box was disjointed. We had 4 midfield players to their 5, or even sometimes 6. So the pass was suffocated. We didn't have the runners in behind, looking to try and break their lines so that we could get a quick ball out. And then when we were in defensive transition, their wing-backs, again, completely overloaded us. You saw that Shaw then didn't know whether he was meant to cover the midfield man or whether he was covering the runner as the fullback. Varane and Lichter in the first, Varane and Lichter in the first half, and then Varane and Lindelof in the second half became 2 split. So there were problems all over the shop in the midfield, and I reckon that's something that Gary O'Neill would have targeted. Is that the squad haven't trained together long enough now to be able to do that effectively. And all it takes is a little bit of a wobble to that, and all of a sudden we're all over the place. I'm going to be contrary here, though, because I think in the first 30, 40 minutes, I think Mount looked all right. He looked quite bright. He was trying to get to every ball. He was trying to cover the blades of grass. The problem we had there is that that's typically Bruno's job, is that Bruno covers the grass, and Bruno's getting in the face of the defenders, and Bruno's pressing. And because they split off when they sort of do it, Bruno was going over to the right, Mount was operating sort of the left half space, is that there's a big gaping hole in the midfield that, if you notice, every time Cunha picked the ball up, EU just waltzed through because we weren't tracking. So, look, I think that was one of the big problems with the midfield, is that there's the lack of cohesion with them. They're not used to playing with each other. It's a different role than Mount would have been used to at Chelsea. We know he's had a poor season last season, so coming off the back of that. And I just think that Wolves tactically knew how to disrupt the midfield. They made our formation not work. It didn't help that Garnacho looked off the pace because, when Casa picks the ball up or when Bruno picks the ball up, we've seen time and time again last season, they look over to that left-hand side for the running behind. And whether it was, again, Garnacho wasn't making the run or Semedo was really good at blocking it off, that pass wasn't on. Anthony, we praise Anthony rightfully so for his defensive work, but then too often Anthony was in the midfield, wasn't trying to make the run behind. And Rashford, as we all know, is not most effective as a 9. And then the final bit, so I'm aware I've gone on a little bit there, but the final bit, I'm sure we'll touch on this, is as fantastic as Onana was, you could tell in that performance this team are still used to having David De Gea in net. Is that the amount of times he picked the ball clear, up,
wasn't it?
Yeah, he'd look for a long passing behind, or he'd look to get a quick counter-attack started, and you could see him becoming frustrated because no one was making the runs. And I think that's because we're so used to David De Gea playing short, and we then start the attacking phase of play with the centre half rather than the goalkeepers. That's something that I fully expect us to work on and to get better at as the season progresses. But look, there's quite a few issues there that I've raised, and I'm not sure if anyone agrees, but that's what I got.
Just to add to Jamie's brilliant analysis, because that was top draw, mate. He's spot on, and this is where Wolves were absolutely particularly smart in their play. And I mentioned it briefly, if you remember, on Friday about the dangers of a 4-3-3 against a 4-2-5-1, whatever it is we play. If you look at the way that our fullbacks invert, we don't get the cover from the wings. We don't get the cover. So you had Garnacho on the left and you had Anthony on the right, playing probably to the halfway line, no further. So Jamie was right. Shaw's then, do I stay or do I go? Wan-Bissaka couldn't be bothered and just went. And that's where it's like a hot knife through butter. When you're missing Mount, which we were, and Bruno's not necessarily there to cover, as we've already discussed, then Casemiro's just looking around going, well, if I go right, I'm leaving a massive hole here. If I go left, I'm leaving a massive hole here. If I stay here, they're just going to run round me. And that's exactly what happened. So last season with Eriksen around Casemiro and with Bruno, Casemiro would take the 10-yard stroll, stop, and his head's always on a swivel, always on a swivel. So he knows exactly if the ball's going to, if they transition on us, I've got to take 10 steps back. I've got to take 2 steps to the left or 2 steps to the right. He's there and he's covering the segment where the ball's approaching. Today, he couldn't do that and he was woefully exposed. This is the issue that Martinez was having. There was just no protection in front of him. And that was a massive problem for us. Going on to Onana, again, a really, really clever spot that, because it's okay. And the fans will talk about this all the time. Great having a keeper like Onana who can play with his feet. But if you don't know how to play with him, he becomes an irrelevance. It becomes a weapon that has blanks in it rather than what it should be doing, firing 50 cals. Now, Jamie's right. We will get there eventually with him. But you can't do that in this league. Wolves have proven today you cannot do that in this league, because any team is going to come and give you a problem. So if you want to make that next step, if we want to take that further step up the rung of the ladder to second place, or even have aspirations of winning, we have got to get to grips with it straight away. These guys are professional footballers. And I'm going to say a couple of things quickly. And for me, Sky Sports were giving, Bruno's coming in and all this. It's raining. He's got somebody holding a fucking umbrella over his head. What the fuck's all that about? And then when you walk onto that pitch, the Wolves players, 9 of them, short sleeves, no fucking undershirts, nothing. All our players, short sleeve, fucking undershirts. If I'm on the opposition, I'm thinking, bunch of girls. I'm going to get in your face. I am going to do that. And these little things, this little psychological thing that happens when you cross that line on a football pitch, they're tiny little things. And people will say you're talking shit, but cross that line. You just look around. You see somebody with long hair. You see somebody with tights. You pick on those guys. They're the weak link. And we had almost 9 weak links in our side because they're wearing undershirts, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's not good enough. And that's what worries me. Little things like that bother me about football. They really do. So anyway, I'll shut up now. Sorry.
I don't feel like you've told me how you really feel, Stu. But I will come back to you in a little bit. And as Julio says here, Stone Cold Stu Austin, absolutely right. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. Nathan, just want to come back to the sort of box that we seem to sort of find ourselves in the middle there, obviously with the fullbacks tucking in, okay? We didn't see the best performance tonight from Garnacho, but obviously Luke Shaw didn't perform very well either. I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka was one of our better players. But do you think maybe it was that relationship on that left-hand side with Luke tucking in? Do you think that Garnacho was struggling to sort of have that extra cover on that left-hand side? Or do you think it was just Garnacho looking a little bit leggy entirely?
I think it's a bit of a mixture of the two, really. We really gained that chemistry between Rashford and Shaw in the later stages of last season. And when you slowly lose that going into Garnacho, yeah, he's definitely lost a yard of pace, that's for sure. And you could definitely tell the chemistry just wasn't quite there. Neither of them had very good games, Shaw or Garnacho, let's be fair. And I was very surprised that he started with Garnacho, to be fair. But it was just that lack of pace, that lack of a yard from Garnacho, and that lack of chemistry. Like you say, it was definitely a massive combination of the two.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely spot on there. And bit of a worry, isn't it? I know he obviously had an injury, picked one up in pre-season as well. Didn't start many games, only started 5 games last season, but I really feel like he needs to push on now, harness and embrace these opportunities and really sort of perform. Jamie, you want to come in there, my man?
Yeah, just a really quick one again when we're talking about the way in which we've set up and the way the Wolves set up. And something else that I noticed that I was impressed with from Wolves' side was I think the instruction was very clear to not press the keeper, which it was the first time I've seen that in a while at Old Trafford, is that the keeper was allowed the time in his own box with the ball at his feet, because Gary O'Neill's obviously gone, he's good with his feet, he's good at finding the pass. You don't want to clip balls to the fullback breaking the press or anything like that. And if you watched how disciplined and how structured they were across their frontline pressing, is that it was the second that the ball was kicked that was the trigger for the press. Onana had all the time in the world. It was one of those games where it was almost like we've gone from one extreme to the other, that the opposition, it was such a weak spot that the second David De Gea had the ball at his feet, the opposition knew they could press it. It'd usually, turn over into a mistake or whatever. Whereas with Onana, I wonder if that's going to be a recurring theme this season, is that, except the likes of Liverpool and City who press from the front quite often,
teams,
that most teams are going to sit off the keeper, which might end up frustrating Onana. And it's something that Ten Hag's really going to have to work on to get that cohesion and to get that chemistry between Onana and his runners and the midfield.
So how did they improve that then, Stu? Because from what I saw, I think Jamie's absolutely right. That could be another, double-edged sword kind of thing. But I felt like the players weren't really giving them that opportunity. I think I said backstage, a lot of people were going in on Onana, sort of sitting back, holding the ball, not really doing a hell of a lot. But he didn't have those options, did he? So how do we improve that going forward?
Well, generally speaking, a target man will help on that one. I'm not just talking about Rasmus Højlund, actually. I'm just talking about a target man in general. That will help because he'll come and he'll occupy the centre halves. Rashford doesn't occupy centre halves. I mean, Max Kilman was really scratching his nuts for 90 minutes because he didn't have anyone pressing him. He didn't have anyone, being a bit shithousery, no elbowing, no shirt pulling, anything of that nature. You don't get it with Garnacho and you don't get it with Anthony, really. So Onana's only really got the width to try and do something with. And, Nathan was right, noticing that Garnacho in particular has lost a yard of pace. 100%, mate. 100%. It's something that I witnessed as well. Garnacho almost went into, when he first broke into the side again, not using his brain, but he had pace to do something with it. He lacked pace and brain today. I was really surprised. Although, again, I called for Sancho to start anyway. So ultimately, a good target man will have it. But here's a caveat, unfortunately. Here is the caveat. Big Rude playing in that team tonight would have been pulling his shiny long locks out of his fucking head, because the amount of time, sorry, TalkSport, the amount of chances that we had to cross the football, and this is what I was saying about Kilman. Kilman could scratch his nuts for 90 minutes because this wasn't happening. We realised Sarr made 2 or 3 errors, didn't he? Personal errors when we pressed on him with the ball 3 times. And again, this is about reading the game, reading the room, understanding where the weaknesses in our position. Why we didn't absolutely pummel him with crosses and try and do something rather than this tippy-tappy football that teams want to play. Look, football's all about scoring goals. It's irrelevant how you do it, score goals. And I thought the goal was good. I'm sure we'll talk about the goal, so I'm not going to labour on that point now. But that's, Højlund, poor lad, he'll be thinking, I might just sit me back, just plays me up for another 3 weeks here, because let's face it.
I hope not. It's not the mentality we want, but I know you're missing it.
I'm going to be dicking about doing nothing when I'm up there. Because hi lads, any chance you can just throw one in, so I can try and get my head on it. So that's how you do it. I think Onana, particularly if he sees a big, strong player up there, Weghorst would be great. Onana'd love Weghorst. He really would. Whatever people say about Weghorst, Onana would absolutely love him because he's got that.
Let's not mention Vegas because someone will appear in the comments and
he always seems to turn up at that point, doesn't he?
Literally.
Good old Trev. Anyway, sorry, go on.
That was it. Sorry, but
okay, fair enough. We lost our train of thought. Right, I just want to get this out the way. I want to move this out the way. So the penalty possibility. Tim Howard said it wasn't a penalty for him. Jamie Carragher has said, I'm not so sure. I don't think it would be overturned. It wasn't a big mistake when you talk about the high bar. So what do we think? Anyone want to jump in on that? Nathan, do you want to come in first? You're shaking your head.
No, I'm shaking my. I didn't think it was a penalty. I thought because so when the ball came in, he's headed it away and then he's been challenged. For me, that's not denying any sort of goal scoring opportunity. So if it was, we've taken him out, then he's missed an obvious header to put it in the net, then yeah, definitely a penalty. But because it was that reverse, not a penalty for me. I think Jamie disagreed when we were talking about it backstage.
So, Jamie, just quickly, we were talking backstage, as he rightly said, and you felt that maybe the goalkeeper's been too protected a lot of the time. And do you think that was the case on this occasion?
Yeah, look, I think it's whatever the referee decides, I think VAR sticks with that decision there. I think if Simon Hooper gives the penalty, the VAR says, yeah, that's fine. We're not going to overturn it. He didn't give a penalty. VAR looked at it and said, oh, yeah, no penalty. I think, yeah, there's been a pattern over the last few years with goalkeepers being protected. We saw the Fulham-Everton game, Leno, the perfectly decent goal disallowed because Leno decides to jump into it. I don't know if it was Mope, I can't remember. But he jumps in at the centre forward himself and is judged to have been impeded, so it's a free kick to Fulham. And I just think it's a bit ridiculous. But I think there's two similar incidents in that game. The one where Anthony gets the ball, and again, he gets the ball first, and then Sarr takes him out. And so I think Nathan is onto something there, and that's a good way to view it, is that I think because it's because it's a higher challenge, it looks worse than it is, but it's probably a similar incident to what we saw. And Jose Sarr's one wasn't even reviewed because we are so predispositioned to understand that if the attacker gets to the ball first and plays the ball across and is then subsequently sort of knocked over by the goalkeeper, that we all just go, oh, that's fine. It's part of the pattern of play. Look, it's taking the point out of it. I think it was positive to see someone trying to command their box. It's something that, again, we've not seen in a long time. But that, again, is something that we might have to strap ourselves in for this season is watching Onana make these challenges. He's clearly a proactive goalkeeper who wants to sweep, who wants to come out and claim crosses and corners. It's something that we've missed. Again, David De Gea is rightfully a legend at this club, but one of the frustrations people did have with him was his lack of cross-claiming. He didn't, his high claims were poor, whereas Onana, we seem to have literally gone a complete polar opposite. But look, I've changed my mind a little bit more to think about it. I said it was a Stonewall penalty. I'm going to go is, if that happened the other end, we'd be screaming for it. That's all I'd say.
Yeah.
And I think, Wolves and Gary O'Neill can feel a little bit hard done by. But look, the course of the season, these things usually even themselves out.
Yeah. I'll just briefly add that I'm with Jamie, by the way, and I'm also with Nathan on this, is that the best part about that for me was Onana was willing to go out and try and claim the ball and clatter into a centre half and a centre forward, which is what a goalkeeper should be doing. The only issue for me was, and this is the part I love the best, he actually was facing him when he decided to clatter into him. Instead of actually coming to the side, which is what he should have been. If he was coming to the side, there would have been
it makes it look a lot worse, doesn't it?
Exactly. There'd have been no problem because the guy's looking at the ball. He was actually looking at him and he went like that. So I thought that was the best part about it, irrespective of his spot kick. That was the best part.
Everyone in the comments, as I said earlier, don't mean to bore you, like and subscribe. But whilst I talk about a couple of things in a second, I want everyone to put in whether they thought it was a penalty. Just pen, no pen. Simple as that. Let us know what you think. Last night we had a wonderful show. All four of us were on this, plus Benny himself, and it was such good fun. And if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it because I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. And put some comments in as well on there and tell us whether we got them right or you feel that any omissions that we've made were wrong. Really, really good show. And hopefully this week, both Ben Jacobs and Keno were poorly last week, so we weren't able to do the show. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a bit of an update on the takeover, potentially incomings and maybe some outgoings as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. So let's come over to the goal then. Obviously, Stu, you alluded to that earlier. We're going to talk about this. Nathan, I'll come to you first on this, buddy, and then I'll come to you, Stu. Probably the best bit of football Bruno had all game. That pass initially to Aaron Wan-Bissaka and of course over, and then Rafa fortunately in the right place at the right time. But what did you make of that? Relatively simple in the end, but obviously probably one of our best passages of play, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. It was the best moment we probably had in the entire game, and it resulted in what we needed at that time. It was getting really cagey up until then, and even after that, it was really cagey. But it was definitely needed at that point. I thought Wan-Bissaka, I think all of us were saying he's probably our player of the match, man of the match performance. As much as we probably say as a pick of a bad bunch, he was very exceptional today. And like you say, it was probably Bruno's best moment. It created that performance, and then having an assist from a right back and then a goal from a centre back, I can't really complain. A great header in the middle there, lovely.
Yeah, unfortunately for me as well, my FPL won't be doing very well this week because Rashford and Bruno dropped stinkers. But maybe next week, we'll see. Gary O'Neill's come out obviously saying that caused issues for United tonight. We tried to overload the middle, create a box in there, 4 versus 3, lots of detail, similar approach to what I have always done. We saw that a lot of Bournemouth, absolutely right, tweaking it with the players that we obviously have. And testament to him, as we've already said, as much as Ten Hag has probably not known how to set up and was kind of a little bit laboured and all that sort of thing, he's had a similar amount of time. And testament and credit to him, he was able to get a lot out of his players tonight, so fair play to him. Someone that came on tonight, which we spoke about on Friday, a couple of them felt that he should have started. I felt the same as well. It didn't. Sancho came on tonight and really changed the game. And I think probably man of the match. Obviously, we'll come to ratings at the end of the show, but man of the match for me. And he played 25 minutes, 30 minutes, right? Stu, your thoughts on Sancho when he came on?
Yeah, he was very, very lively. He's still lacking that ability to take a player on and beat him in the box for whatever reason. His movement, I thought, was good. I thought his vision was good. And I thought he did make a huge difference alongside Eriksen when he came on. Eriksen provided the guile. And I said to you earlier about Kilman, having it quite easy, etc. And I think Dawson had it quite easy at the back. I think as soon as Sancho came on, there was more of an issue for them. Hence, for whatever reason, they were caught sleeping for the goal. For a centre half, that was awful. Freddie's made a point about Casemiro's run, which dragged, I think it was Kilman out. But, in something like that, Mark, you just take one step back as a centre half and try and find physically where your opponent is and try and get a back header in some way. Even if you miss it, what you'll do is potentially put him off. And they didn't do that. It was a lovely ball. He didn't mean to float it like he did because he's such a weird player, isn't he, Wan-Bissaka? But he almost hopped as he put the volley cross over. It was quite funny, really. And that's what got the aerial side of it. And then obviously Varane was there to poach a goal. I know Vicky would have been screaming.
Oh yeah, you know what? Every time Nelly gets close or scores, I always think of her because she's dying for him to score, and obviously didn't get one at all last season.
Yeah, she'll be happy. So yeah.
Funny you said that. Bruno Fernandes on the goal. He said Rafa was there. We don't normally train with him in the box in open play, but he was there and he scored. So we're really happy with that. Ten Hag has come out and said a few things. It can be better, the performance. We can play better, but we're pleased with the win. The opposition were dynamic. We have to match that. We have to fight for our points. And then he goes on to say there was no easy game in the Premier League and definitely not Wolves. They always seem to be a bit of a toughie for us. You remember last year, I think it was in the Molineux, wasn't it, where Rashford got that goal, 1-0, wasn't it, in the end, I think. Was it the Molineux or Trafford? One of them. Anyway, but they're always a tough opposition for us, aren't they? They're a tough team to beat and did really well. We have to fight in every game. We hope we'll be better on the ball in the next game. I sincerely hope so because we absolutely need to be. Rafa has talked about Martinez coming off at half time, a little problem on his ankle tendon. We'll see but I don't think it is a big deal. We'll see how he is this week. So hopefully we'll get more about that. I thought he was coming off because of the card. I think everyone did, but clearly maybe not. Or perhaps it was and he doesn't know. He's not talked to Ten Hag yet. We'll see. Right, let's move on to a couple of other players. Casemiro tonight. Anyone want to? I know we've talked about his run. Anyone want to come in on Casemiro? Thoughts on him?
I'll jump in quickly. I thought first half he was very hot and cold. I think he didn't know where he needed to be at times, and I think obviously we've already touched on the midfield and how disjointed it came across. And there were just some times when he seemed to either not be near the man that he needs to be marking, or he was just a couple of yards off it. He seems to have he looked like he was blowing steam a little bit, and then he pulled his socks up and he seemed to sort himself out. And obviously, look, Casemiro is absolutely phenomenal. We know how important he is to this side, and I think he then put in a fantastic performance. But there was definitely some. I know obviously people made comments about him in pre-season and things like that, looking a bit unfit and stuff like that. And I think there was a couple of signs tonight that maybe he's not 90-minute match ready, for that pace and that sort of level that he set himself. But he'll get there. We know how good he is. I just think that people were probably just a little bit shocked. When Joshua fought Ruiz, and he was he just got chinned because he obviously did not prep for it. I genuinely think that there'll be a similar thing tonight with the Wolves. I think the mentality probably would have been, it's Wolves. They're in turmoil, and I think we were actually a bit blown away in the first 10 minutes by how pressing they were and how good they actually were. So we probably were just a little bit shell shocked. But look, I think Casemiro ended up just putting in a good performance, and he was solid.
Yeah.
I think Jamie's right. I think actually Casemiro was shell shocked by the space that he had that Mount should have been and wasn't. I think if Mason Mount plays on Saturday, you'll have to get your reins out, your dog reins. You'll have to strap Mount up and make sure you're pulling him around the pitch. I need you back here, pal, because obviously he's shouting to him and he was going in one ear and out the other. Actually, you come into Mount's defence, and I will defend him a little bit. His first game at Old Trafford, Premier League game. I'm not talking about friendlies. Friendlies are just nothing. Your first Premier League game, your adrenaline is 150 miles an hour, and that's how he played. And you can't have that because Casemiro, as good as he is, he needs that calming influence around him, which is Eriksen or somebody that knows exactly where to be at the right time. And that's professional football, by the way, lads. It isn't anything new. It's professional football. So, Shane's right. It's good to have you in the comments, by the way, Shane. I haven't seen you for a while. But
it'd be nice to get him on a fucking show, wouldn't it?
Well,
he also said rancid performance
Can you all
tonight.
watch your language?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Jamie. Sorry, Jamie. Rancid performance tonight, but great to see the panel back shooting their poo up the Reds.
But he's kind of, my point being that, it does happen. We've seen it with a variety of different players, and I don't want to compare them, and it's not a comparison, but look at the way McAllister performed for the Scousers yesterday. He was very calm in that. I can't pronounce his name, that Sablaski or whatever his was. Again, very calming. Didn't let it get to them. Sabotalai, yeah. Didn't let it get to them. Didn't let the crowd overrule them. They just played the game. And that is where a real cutting-edge, top-end professional, an elite professional, does. He plays the game. You almost got to play it safe in your first match, and work your way into it. Casemiro did. We all thought, crikey, Casemiro's passed it for the first couple of games, but he was playing his way into it, finding the system. And Mount needs to do that. If he's going to start Saturday, he needs to do that. So he needs Casemiro constantly checking his ear and saying, look, pal, I need you here. I need you here. I need you here. And if you're not going to be there, I'm going to absolutely roast you in front of everybody at half-time and at full-time until you do what I'm telling you to do. That's football. That's professional football. Mm-hmm. And that's how you do it. So Jamie was right. I just wanted to add that part to it. No,
well summed up, both of you. Thank you very much. I was going to come to something else. That's it. Sorry, I keep forgetting. We were really missing a number 9 tonight. I thought for a minute that possibly, I think a lot of people in the group chat were screaming maybe Martial. Now, I know everyone's sort of thoughts on that situation, but we were really sort of missing that sort of man to link up a little bit, weren't we? Get Martial on, perhaps have Rashford on the left, get that link up in the middle, and be able to sort of draw in a few of those things. But it would be great once we get Højlund in, really. I think the sooner the better. I think we were really missing that focal point tonight. Would you agree, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes life so much easier when you've got that target man as a number 9 that's going to really do the legwork. Absolutely. And we definitely missed having Rashford on that left-hand side, especially in the first half when we could all tell pretty early that Garnacho had sort of lost that pace, where we really needed that link-up play for them from Shaw and Rashford on the left and linking up in the middle for a number 9, whether that be Martial or we may have to be waiting a little while for Højlund at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely right. It's always a bit frustrating for me, really, because I always have this debate every so often about Rashford in the 9, and I know it's not his best position, but he's obviously played very well in that position. And on the night when I have a chat about it, defend him a little bit, he wasn't on form there at all tonight, was he? Right, we are going to come to the ratings now. So I will give a nana to Jamie. You start, my man.
7 out of 10. He kept a clean sheet on his Premier League debut. He was commanding of his box. He was proactive. He swept well. He claimed well. The people that I don't know if anyone saw that clip of Richard Keys and Andy Gray talking about De Gea versus Onana. Honestly, if you want to laugh, go and have a watch. There's a reason that the Football Cliches podcast include a section every week of Keys and Gray. But it's brilliant. But anyway, so anyone that had this narrative of, Onana was going to cost us because he's not as good as a shot. We saw his shot stopping was good tonight. There were a few little moments where he showed us his shot stopping range. So big 7 for me. I thought he was absolutely solid, and he's only going to get better.
Big 7. Yeah, good tonight it was. Good. I really... He's had so many critics already. He's not even played a game yet, and you just kind of want him to have a nice game to sort of ease him in and to shut them up early. But yeah, he was solid tonight. Really, really pleased, and hopefully we see a little bit more of what he can do, especially with his distribution, obviously going forward. And he's still on for 38 clean sheets. So excellent stuff. Right, let's move on to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I will give that to you, Nathan.
I'm probably going to be a bit too generous, but I'm going to go for a 9 because he was definitely my man of the match. I was probably really high with that, but I'm going to go with that.
It is very high.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, Nathan, you'll see as the week goes on, we are very, very critical. Absolutely fine, mate. You give him a 9, and we're happy with that. And Reece is agreeing with you.
He was,
almost
8
man
of the match. He was the man of the match. I'm going to agree, Nathan.
Sorry.
No, fair play. No, I'm going to stick with that because he was definitely the best player on the pitch most of the game. He wasn't consistent all through the game, but he was our best player for big parts of the match. And obviously getting the decent assist in a quite theatrical way, as Stu pointed out, it was still decent enough for me. So yeah, I'm going to stick with my 9 out of 10 for that.
Yeah, fair.
It's his limbs, isn't it? Like that man, just because how long his limbs are. I know that's why they call him the spider and stuff like that. But I still stand by that man could score from his own box just by poking his toe across the line because that's how long they are. But yeah, I'm going to back Nathan here. 9s are a bit high for this show, but you know what I mean. But I think Wan-Bissaka was immaculate.
He was.
There was that little lapse in concentration that him and Pellistri had at the end where they didn't track. I think it was Wang Yi-chan, and they let him in. But other than that, I think Wan-Bissaka was imperious. He was good at right back. He came into centre mid really well, and then he pushed on. And I think, just sorry to jump in again, but something that was really interesting is watching how he underlapped Anthony rather than overlapping him. So he was always the receiver in the sort of the right half space, left Anthony out wide. And I don't know if that's because we're trying to combat this thing of Anthony's so easy to defend because he literally just runs down the right a little bit and then stops and then goes on his left. But I think Wan-Bissaka complimented Anthony really, really nicely tonight. And that's a really good performance to silence people that think he needs to go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do agree. And we've spoken about a lot last season, the sort of relationship on the right-hand side between those two, as you've just mentioned. And by the way, Nathan, I wasn't going in on you, just saying that 9, obviously a little bit high, but he was deserving man of the match. I do agree with you, absolutely right. Right, let's move on to
Martinez
first. We'll do Stu. And do Lindelof for me as well, please.
You are Martinez is hard to judge really because he didn't really have to do much. I know
Got
they
caught
played.
out a couple of times, didn't he?
He did, yeah, he gets a 6 for me. Lindelof 6 as well. I didn't think he did a great deal. I thought Lindelof looked really unfit to me.
Yeah, he did.
He looked gangly tonight. He looked really unfit. So I'd both the 6. And I think I'm being generous, actually, if I'm being honest, with a 6.
Yeah, maybe, but 6 is fine. Jamie, over to you with Luke Shaw, please, buddy.
5 is
Well, he
it's
got that
5, all
block.
right.
He put that block in the end, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. We saw some of the Luke Shaw's good qualities and Luke Shaw's bad qualities tonight. Again, fitting the trend, he looked a little bit off the pace. I don't think a lot of our squad looked match fit tonight, which I'm not sure why, but yeah, I think Shaw was not up to his usual high standards. But again, look, it's the first game of the season. I'm not going to start agendas and I'm not going to use it as the basis for my opinion because I'm not a nut job. But look, we should, I think one of the reasons we saw Shaw's drop off tonight was Garnacho wasn't on it. So Garnacho didn't create a lot of that space for Shaw.
It's about the relationship on the whole side, isn't it?
If you watch it back, and this is what I found really interesting about like the tactical setup of things, is that the few moments where we ended up in a position where Rashford was on the left for about 30 seconds, we looked brilliant because we ended up in that same pattern that we saw last season where Rashford takes the ball into that left half space. He's got Luke Shaw overlapping, and then Rashford will drive towards the area, try and beat a man, and he's got Luke for the outside pass or whatever. And those patterns of play are what we'll get back to once we bring the number 9 in, and I think Shaw will improve. But tonight he was poor, but a 5. He kept a clean sheet, and like you say, that block was pretty good.
Yeah. Reese in the comments here, Lita is a madman, a warrior, but he gets a 4, not good enough, and is yellow, no need for the challenge. Lindelof a 5 because it's average and respectful. I think that's absolutely fair. Andrew here, thanks for joining us. Buddy Martinez with a 6. His challenge that led to the yellow limited what he could do as far as stopping the count is absolutely right, and that's why we all thought he got hooked. Maybe not. Right, Raphael Varane. Nathan, I'll come to you on that one again, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, he scores the winning goal. That's the most important thing for the 3 points. He was pretty solid at times. He did get caught out a few times. I think a 7 might be fair, I would say, because he was caught out a few times, scored the goal. He was solid at most of the time. But yeah, I think it was a bad performance across the board, but there was individual moments where they all had their pretty decent, exceptional moments. But then on the whole, just a professional performance possibly for Varane, I would say.
Yeah, fair. Casemiro, anyone want to take Casemiro?
I'll take Casemiro.
The cat maybe.
Cat to do, yeah.
Can you hear the cat?
Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah. Casemiro. I'm torn between a 6 and a 7 really, because I think he did kind of pull his socks up second half and kind of got it sorted eventually. But I'm going to go with a 6 because he fell way, way, way below the standards that he sets himself. Football at the end of the day is about standards, and you don't let them slip. And I think he did tonight. So he gets a 6 from me.
Gary O'Neill has said that John Moss spoke to him after the game and has admitted Wolves should have had a penalty, and it was a clear and obvious.
It's irrelevant. It's an irrelevant.
It is irrelevant. Just giving you information. Don't kill the messenger. Anyway, let's move on to
Mark. And that's also not even it's not even the saying. Do you know what I mean?
It's not. I got it absolutely wrong.
Shoot the messenger.
Shoot the
Come
messenger.
on. Get a grip.
Come on. I'll tell you what, bastards. Right, let's move on to Bruno Fernandes.
With him and other. It's your invite now, Nath.
Oh, that was so funny. That was. Anyway, Bruno Fernandes, Stu.
Oh, well, Jesus Christ. I mean, the armband, it chopped his left arm off, didn't it? Dear me. He was abysmal. Yeah, he was absolutely abysmal. And, when you talk about standards, He's let his standards down by his socks. His ankles are terrible. He gets a 4 for me. You can challenge me all you like on it, people, but he gets a 4.
No, I think you're right. I
I
don't think
can't.
anyone's going to challenge you.
I couldn't pull him up at all.
Yeah. Mason Mount, Jamie.
God, another one.
Yeah, it was a tricky one, wasn't it? You know, we've all had our comments about it when we were linked with him, and then when we signed him. But Erik ten Hag has forgotten more about football than I reckon most of us know. So I'm going to trust him on this side. But I think tonight again, the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought he looked all right, and I was just like, oh, you know what? Like he was useful. He was harassing Wolves players. He got into that good position early on where he intercepted the ball. And when we were on the attack. But then he just dropped off a cliff, and he was just the pair of them, him and Bruno, were both as bad as each other. I think they were both anonymous. They covered every blade of grass, but if you're not proactive in covering every blade of grass, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Mo Farah covers a lot of ground, but I won't put him on the football pitch in a Premier League game. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those that they need to decide, and they need to figure out what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And I think the comments are right in that Amrabat needs to come in, and it needs to be one of Bruno or Mount, because unless there's a change in the system or a change where they play, I'm going to give Mount a 4 as well, same as Bruno, because again he just didn't really offer us any bite. But again, benefit of the doubt, first game of the season, runners in front of him.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, fair. Ten Hag on Mason Mount, good performance. He did what we expected him to do. Had a good level in the game. Was his assessment. So each to their own, of course. Right, moving on to Anthony, and I'll come to you, Nathan.
I wasn't that. What's the right word? I wasn't amazed by his performance, but I wasn't disappointed in his performance. He was pretty. He had his moments. Again, they all had their moments, and I think he had the most amount of moments, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Yep. So I think he really did have. What really confused me is that him and Garnacho have now got the same hair. That really threw me for a little while. I was like, I thought we were playing that switcheroo in the front there, but yeah, it was a. I would go for. I think a 6 might be fair. Would we agree on that? I think that's fair. He had a professional performance for sure.
Yeah, 6 is good. I'd agree with it. Yeah, I think
that's fair. I think Jamie alluded to it earlier. I think his tracking back was good. I think he was very frustrating at times going forward. Had an opportunity, cleared off the line, and that was pretty much all he did. And I think it was a rightful change when he did get subbed. I won't come to police you tonight. But we will talk about Sancho, obviously. But first of all, I want to come to you, Stewie, on Rashford, please, mate.
I always give scores about how I would feel if I was on the pitch and I was watching them through the bird's eye. And he would have absolutely frustrated the hell out of me tonight, Rashford. But let me be clear about this. As Reece said, he didn't actually do a lot wrong, but he didn't necessarily do a lot right either. He tried to create. He got frustrated. If we give Anthony a 6, I don't think he played as good as Anthony, so he's going to have a 5 for me.
5.
Yeah, sorry, lads, but I try. He's a massively difficult one. Rashford was to score tonight, but that's what I would do. 5 for me.
Mm-hmm. So Garnacho, Jamie.
Oh God, dear me.
Yeah. He stunk the gaff out, didn't he? Realistically, I won't mince words, but at the same time, we know what he can do. So again, it's not the end of the world. We come away with the 3 points. Ten Hag learned that maybe Garnacho's not ready to start. He looked bright in pre-season at points, but the thing that everyone loved about Garnacho last year was him coming off the bench in the 60th minute, in the 70th minute or whatever, and him just running at fullbacks. He didn't really do a lot of running at fullbacks tonight. I think Nelson Semedo handled him really well. He very much he'd receive the ball square, and then he'd try and cut in rather than running down the byline or whatever. So it was a tricky one for Garnacho. By all means, it was not his best performance in United shirt, but there'll be plenty more to come. Do you know what I mean? And he'll get there, and he'll find his feet again. So I'm not worried about it. It just was probably the wrong game for him to start. I think Sancho, probably deserved the start, but we could be saying completely the opposite things. We could be saying that Sancho was poor from the start and Garnacho was mint when he came on.
Thing,
so
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm going to give Garnacho a 4. I think he was the worst at the front three.
Fair.
Look, it's one of those. He's a superstar in the making, and he's going to have nights like this. It's how he bounces back from them that's the important part.
That's exactly right. His mental character will be what we're looking at now, rather than what he does on a football pitch. It's his mental character that allows him to take it forward. So, Freddie, I would have gone with a 9 on that. I hope you're feeling well, by the way.
Yeah.
Is it Freddie? Freddie Woodward?
I believe so.
I hope you're feeling well, Freddie, lad.
Yeah.
I would give Maguire a 10. Obviously, I thought he was outstanding. It cut to a couple of times where he was giving Leacher a bit of advice on where to stand next time, son. Just your position wasn't great. Bit of advice today. I like that. True captain material there by Maguire.
He's lost it. He's lost it. So last but not least, then Nathan, I come to you on Sancho.
Yeah, he definitely had an impact when he came on. I think he, like we said before, and like you guys said on Friday, I think he should have started, and he definitely would have probably. It was definitely the wrong game for Garnacho to start, because I think Stu mentioned it on Friday, or I think somebody did. Is if we played with Sancho in that rotating three at the front, and then brought Garnacho on about 60, 70 minutes when Wolves are knackered, we this whole trajectory of the game could have been so much different, but. Sancho really did have an impact, and then sort of substitutions around him didn't really affect the game in that sense. I would probably give him, out of fairness, I'd give him a 7, because he really did have a decent impact on the game when he came on, I would say.
We were just a bit narrow, weren't we, when he came on? For some reason, we attacked really narrowly when Sancho came on. We needed to attack with more width. I don't know why we did.
It was that substitution, because it was him and Eriksen that came on at the same time, and then about 5 or 10 minutes later, McTominay came on for Rashford. So I thought that was interesting. So rather than have that switcheroo at the front, it was sort of like, no, we've now got the 1-0, we're gonna settle for it, kind of thing, which I didn't enjoy very much, but still.
Talking of Eriksen, I'd give Eriksen a 7 as well. Limited time. I thought he was a superb Eriksen. He looked fit as well. I don't know what you guys thought. He was chasing back.
Yeah.
His passing was phenomenal.
He literally came on, and within about 30 seconds, a minute, had floated that ball into the box, and it was, I think it was Bruno that attacked it. And it was, and that's what we were missing. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of first phase midfielder, that 6'8", whatever, picking the ball up and looking to just immediately break the lines, that was, I think, genuinely that was one of the first forward balls we played, and it came in like the 75th minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. That's it then, guys. We're going to end it there. Julio in the comments saying the report from Neil Custis.
Don't talk about Neil Custis.
Yeah, a little bit hit miss, really. Well, very miss. Maguire is demanding 15 million from United to join.
I thought we'd agreed a 6 million payoff.
That's what I thought.
Then again,
he should have gone by now, shouldn't he?
He should have gone by now. Yeah. I mean, when did we accept the bid? Last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Something like that, 6 mil. Yeah. 30 mil. So for his England career, I was quite surprised to see him on the bench, actually. If I'm being honest, he should have gone by now, and I think United need to force that.
Yeah, I think Neville made a comment before the game that not appearing again. I think he was asked or something. He said, I think they're trying to sort of shoo him out the door. Possibility. Right, anyway, guys, thank you for joining in tonight. It's been a good one, and we made the best of what we could from the performance we saw. But of course, at the end of the day, as we've said many times, about the 3 points, and hopefully we can see some incremental improvements as the games go on. But obviously, a big game's coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll be doing this again, obviously, next time. But until then, we'll see you next time.